Hello, wine lovers! I am Yaroslava, sommelier and wine educator, your guide on this journey through the world of wines, spirits, and cocktails. Winter has arrived, making it the perfect time to talk about mulled wine, and more importantly, to prepare it and warm yourself with such aromatic drink. Mulled wine, Glühwein, Glögg, Bishop Wine, Izvar, Windshaw are just a few of many names for this spicy heated wine. It is popular in nearly every country where wine is consumed and where the weather occasionally turns cold enough to crave a warming beverage. I have already prepared a pot of mulled wine for us because it needs time to infuse. There it is, simmering gently over a small flame, waiting for the right moment. It is hard to pinpoint the exact moment someone first added spices and honey to a pot of wine, placed it over fire, tasted it, and saw that it was good. We can only be sure it happened sometime after the invention of wine, giving us a few thousand years of time span. The earliest surviving record indicates that the Romans began adding spices to wine and occasionally heating it in the 2nd century. At that time, Romans had a habit to experimenting with wine, adding everything from salt water to pebbles. This experimentation was likely not a result of mere curiosity or a quest for new flavors, for it's possible. It was more likely due to the abundance of poor quality wine, which was common given the technology of that time, and their practical desire to improve its taste without wasting it. As they expanded their empire, the Romans not only conquered lands, but also introducing grape wine and their wine drinking customs to the territory they ruled. Some believe that modern Glühwein, Glögg, and other variations of spiced wine, including chilled versions like sangria, are descendants of Hippocras. Hippocras, a wine spiced with sugar and various seasoning, was highly popular among Europe's wealthy during the Middle Ages. It might have appealed for the poor as well, but spices and sugar were luxuries not everyone could afford. The earliest mention of Hippocras, when called piment, dates back to the 12th century. By the 14th century, it was widely enjoyed by nobles and royalty alike. The primary spices used in Hippocras included cinnamon, ginger, cloves, grain of paradise, the seeds of a plant of ginger family, and long pepper, a relative of black pepper. Both variations existed. Ground spices were added directly to the wine, which was then strained through a Manicum Hippocraticum, also known as Hippocratic sleeve, a multi-layered conical cloth bag invented by the Greek physician Hippocrates at the 5th century BC for water filtration. The drink's name was derived from this filtration method. Hippocrates was prized for its supposed medicinal and aphrodisiac qualities. By the 19th century, the popularity of Hippocrates had significantly declined. However, it did not disappear entirely. Even today, it is still produced commercially in small quantities in France, particularly regions like Occitanie and the Loire Valley. This means it is possible to find a bottle for purchase. Additionally, Hippocrates is often served at medieval festivals across Europe, where it complements the atmosphere of historical restoration. If you'd like to try a glass of this medieval drink, here is the recipe that gives you a general idea of the proportion. Of course, the recipe is adaptable, but this serves as a solid starting point. A bottle of red wine. Use something like regular Bordeaux. Avoid high-end wines like Grand Cru, since the spices will overshadow very delicate flavors. It would just be a waste of good wine. However, bad wine, like Oxid, should also be avoided, as spices would make it drinkable. 1½ teaspoon cinnamon powder, 1½ teaspoon ginger powder, 1½ teaspoon galangal powder. Alternatively, substitute galangal with nutmeg. If you do this, double the amount of cinnamon for a variation inspired by Le Grand Dictionnaire de Cuisine by Alexandre Dumas Père. 100 grams sugar. Mix all ingredients together and let the mixture stand at room temperature for a couple of hours. Then, filter the wine through the several layers of cheesecloth or through a coffee filter. Keep Hippocrates refrigerated for a day or two to stabilize its taste. Now that we have covered the historical backdrop, let's dive back into mulled wine. In modern English culture, mulled wine is typically flavored with ingredients like orange, lemon, cinnamon, nutmeg, fennel, star anise, clove, cardamom, and ginger. A splash of brandy is often added at the end of preparation to enhance its richness. In German-speaking countries, as well as us, Glühwein is flavored mainly with cinnamon, cloves, star anise, vanilla, and citrus fruits. Rum is the most popular spirit addition. In Scandinavia, the flavored mulled wine known as glögg is spiced with cinnamon, cardamom, ginger, clove, and bitter oranges. Scandinavians also enjoy adding raisin, dried fruits, and nuts to their glögg. As for spirits, they often incorporate vodka, aquavit, or brandy for an extra kick. In German tradition also features this particular spectacle and theatrical variant of sweetening. A metal grey is placed over a cup of mulled wine, and a sugar loaf of soaked rum is set on top. The sugar is then set alight, burning and caramelizing before dripping into the wine below. This unique variant deserves a detailed discussion later. It is unnecessary to explore every single variation of mulled wine from every country, as the main idea is universal: wine, spices, sweetener, and sometimes a spirit. Mulled wine is not restricted to red wine. White mulled wine is also popular, with Germans often using Riesling to their recipes. Additionally, sweet or fortified wines such as port or Madeira work wonderfully for mulled wine, providing a richer and more complex flavor profile. As for sweetener, both sugar and honey are excellent choices. In the Middle Ages, sugar was a luxury reserved for the wealthy, with honey was far more accessible to the general population. Nowadays, it's the opposite. Those who care about flavor and health often prefer honey, while others stick to sugar. Personally, I choose honey for its taste. When it comes to spices, the choice is entirely up to you. Unlike Hippocrates, it is better to use whole spices rather than ground ones. Ground spices may leave a gritty texture, and you might find yourself biting into them. For convenience, you can place the spices into a tea bag, but it is not strictly necessary. While pre-made spice blend for mulled wine are readily available in stores, it is much more fun and rewarding to create your own mixture tailored for your preferences. You can even buy pre-bottled mulled wine labeled as just heat and serve in many wine shops. However, freshly prepared mulled wine is always superior in both flavor and aroma. Finally, about the preparation process. There are two main methods for making mulled wine. The first method, slow and traditional. Pour the wine into a pot, add spices, sliced fruits, and sugar or honey. Place the pot over medium heat and gently warm it up to 70–80 degrees centigrade, just when you see the first white bubbles. Don't let it boil. Boiling destroys the delicate flavors of wine. Cover the pot with the lid to preserve the aroma and prevent evaporation. Reduce the heat to the lowest setting, just enough to keep the wine hot without boiling, and let it steep for about 40 minutes. This allows the spices to fully infuse into wine. Once done, remove the pot from the heat. If you like, add a splash of your preferred spirit. Serve and enjoy. The second method, quick and efficient. In a small saucepan, add your spices and just enough water to cover them, about 100–200 ml. Bring the mixture to the boil and let it simmer for 5–10 minutes. This extracts the flavors quickly. Add sugar or honey to the spiced water and stir to dissolve. Pour into the wine and warm the mixture to 70–80 degrees centigrade as the first method. Remove from the heat, add spirits as desired, and serve immediately. Which method is better? Personally, I prefer the slow traditional approach. It allows the flavor to develop more fully and creates a richer, more aromatic mulled wine. However, it's ultimately a matter of preference and time constraints. My own recipe is an example of proportion, and never hesitate to play with ingredients to find your own best variant. A bottle of red wine or white, although I prefer red. 1 cinnamon stick, 8–10 clove buds, 1 orange sliced. If have a white wine, a sour apple like Granny Smith is better. 4–5 cardamom seeds, 1 star anise, 5 allspice, 10 black peppers, half teaspoon of ground nutmeg, tablespoon honey or more, I don't like too sweet, 50–100 ml of brandy, optionally, according to your mood. Serve in ceramic or glass cups. I think our mulled wine is ready, let's pour some. This one for you, this one for me. Stay with me subscribe to my channel. Feel free to ask questions and don't hesitate to support me. Merry winter for everyone! Cheers!